Hi, this is Dan Fallon, and and this is October 20th, I think, 2017. And the intent today is to give an overview of the Bacchetta Carbon Aero 3.0 bike that I purchased about 5 months ago and made a significant number of adjustments to it. And I think it's important to identify what those adjustments are. I'm going to try to take probably a fair amount of time describing what I've got and why I've got it. For one thing, the actual frame of the Bacchetta Carbon Aero 3.0, it's a large size frame, and you can see it's essentially all the blue items. It's a stick. That's what Bacchetta apparently means in Italian. It's a stick bike. It's a recumbent stick bike. It has front on the front I've got a 50-34 compact crank, and the rings, the big ring is 50 and the small ring is 34. I like that because, you know, the terrain in which I ride the bike is mountainous, and like, for example, yesterday I did about 62 miles with about 4,500 feet of climbing, and it's really an advantage to have the 34 ring when you're pushing into the 8 and 9% grades, and or if in fact you're pushing 18 and 19 miles of nothing but climbing, which happens not infrequently. It's good to have a small ring up front. This is a rear wheel drive bicycle, and you can see that there's a that you can see there, that's a device that allows the chain to essentially accommodate the rear wheel. On the back I have a SRAM XO 10-speed derailleur, and the ring, the cassette ring that I have in the back is an 1136 10-speed ring. It's a SRAM. The reason I have a 36 is, again, given the mountainous climbing that I do, you can be pushing 2 hours of nothing but climbing, and it makes it's a real advantage to slow things, to be able to be generous with yourself. There is a downside, I think, to having the maximum 50 ring up front, and that is that I spin it when you're going downhill. It's not uncommon to hit mid-40s mile per hour, and without trying. And if you have a larger front ring, like for example I have on my one of my other bikes, I have a 58-42 front ring, and that's really that's a real advantage to increasing the downhill speed on the with that kind of a setup. However, the downside, of course, is that if you have that bigger ring up front for both the 58 or the 42, it makes it that much more difficult to climb. So typically I train out here in the mountainous area with the 50-34, the compacted double, and the 1136 rear ring. Another thing that I want to point out here is that I've modified the steering configuration from the standard Bacchetta. The Bacchetta typically has a riser that comes up here, and then it has typical handlebars. The handlebars are longer to accommodate the reclined position for recumbent cyclists, but there's a riser up here, and then a stem that it makes essentially for a less reclined position than the one that I have here. What I've done is that I've purchased essentially this kind of a stem, and I've modified this is called a tiller. Some people call it a boom. I call it a tiller. I've modified this so that it's a straight tube. The way I've modified that is that I've cut it and welded it. The real advantage I have with the tiller, outside of the fact that it allows me to be in a much more reclined position, and I think this is about a 4% recline angle, rather 4-degree angle. One of the advantages, of course, is that you're far more reclined, and that's good because it results in less wind resistance and a more aerodynamic position. But what I've done here is that I've essentially made it possible to move up and down with the tiller. That makes a big difference when you're starting and stopping or navigating at some point. In order to do that, I'm not going to be able to show you, but I've created what we would call a channel lock here. The channel lock is a stopping device for the tiller. And I've got essentially a rectangular device here into which I insert a hard plastic block that I can change the length of it. If it were longer, the tiller would not descend very far, and if it's shorter, the tiller is it descends quite a bit to a deeper angle. This is a very I find it a very stable setup. For those who are somewhat experienced in recumbent cyclists, this would not be too much of a surprise. Those who are unfamiliar with this kind of a setup might be hesitant and cautious, but in my estimate, with a little bit of experience, and you'll find that it works quite well. Moving up here, what I've done with the handlebars is that I've also made some significant modification. For one thing, the handlebar itself is what is called a mini bullhorn. As you see here, it's like that. And I've actually modified that so that it's it's less wide and closer together. The ends are closer together. And the way I've done that is that I've cut off and welded, I've cut off 60 millimeters on either side from the mini handlebar, cruise bar, not cruise bar, the bullhorn. And that makes quite a significant difference. Again, many people would find that somewhat intimidating, but actually, again, with some experience, I'm sure you could find that it's quite accommodating. I've descended steep hills with a tailwind at speeds of 55 and 60 miles an hour, and although that requires careful, steering and handling, I find that it's very stable. So that's how I've done that. I've also got what are called SRAM time trial shifters, and they're levers for both the front and the back, and they essentially accommodate my gearing needs. The brake, it's a fairly inexpensive brake. It's the Tektro brake, and it's essentially, as you can see here, if you went online, and you'd be able to find a top pull brake. It works very well on both the front and the rear. This is the front brake, and I've got a rim brake up front. And one of the advantages of the Carbonero 3 is that it accommodates, let me try to move this so that you can see it, it accommodates a disc brake, which is really important when you're descending at 55 miles an hour, and if you need to brake for any one particular reason. Yeah, it's a real benefit, and I'm very happy that I've made that happen on the carbon. In order to do that, however, what you have to do is, in order to have a disc brake in back, the wheels are not your typical 700cc wheels. These that can work. But I have 650 wheels, and I like that better. It's lower to the ground, less weight, and when I'm steeply reclined, it allows my legs, when I need to stop, it allows my legs, which I'm not short, I'm 5'10", it allows my legs to, my feet to touch the ground more easily, and allows me to start and stop more easily because I'm lower to the ground. You'll notice here that what I have is what's called the Kent Polk Rail Gun seat, and again I've modified that as well. I have a Ventasit pad, but as you can see, I use it not just for sitting and leaning on the bike, but leaning back and reclining on the bike, but also for storage. I carry spare gator Gorilla tape, and then I have zip ties, which I think are a remarkable benefit. And then I have a few Velcro straps that I need, that in the event that I need it. You'll see also, this is a something that I use to carry tubes and CO2 cartridges. It's very handy, low profile. The headrest is an important part, and it takes quite a bit of adjustment to come up with a headrest. I mean, this is kind of overbuilt for me, and I haven't really spent a lot of time making it fancy or lightweight, but it is lightweight because it's essentially got padding, lightweight foam padding inside. And I really, and it takes a fair amount of time to come up with something that accommodates your particular need. I believe that most cyclists have a hard time. Well, it's dangerous riding in the open road, and so what I do, I've built a setup here using PVC pipe to put two Planet Bike turbo flashers They're, for what they're called, essentially they're strobe in a lot of ways. And even during the daytime, it's very noticeable, and particularly at night. It's very, very noticeable, and it's very safe. I'm very pleased with that. I'm not satisfied sufficiently with that, perhaps for good reason, I believe. So I have another Planet Bike Blaze 650 light that I've placed on the back, and even during the daytime, I find that vehicles behind me see me well in advance and are able to. It's an active form of notification rather than having just flags and barely noticeable flashing lights that in the harsh sunlight are you don't see them very well. Given that I do a lot of long distance cycling, I've essentially put 2 bottle cages on the back, and I like that quite a bit. It actually allows me to do long distances and still be hydrated. I've also got one of these too. It attaches to the seat bracket here and the seat plate, and I can carry more water or fluid, and that helps quite a bit. The Ventasit pad, some people don't like, some people really like a very heavy pad, a 2-inch pad. I don't particularly, I just don't need it. Given that I'm very, very reclined, there are times when essentially the small of my back is extended here, and this is a pad that extends beyond the seat that provides me some padding for the small of my back. Moving around a bit, I have another essentially pouch that I've zip tied to the carbon fiber rail gun seat, and in this case I put my wallet and cell phone in there. Given the fact that I'm out oftentimes in very remote locations where there's no cell phone, and if there was a problem, I carry a good deal of tire changing equipment, bathroom toilet paper, razor blades, and tools in this thing here. That's pretty much the CA accommodation that I made with the CA-3. I'm very pleased with it. Something I didn't mention. I'm pretty much a fanatic for seeing behind me, and I've attempted many different ways to put mirrors on here that allow me to see behind me. This is essentially a simple device and works very well. Again, it's PVC pipe. I cut it up and accommodated it, again using zip ties, and then I've used a Zeffel mirror that I can use to adjust for whatever need that I have. If you have any questions with regards to what I've done with this bike and how it operates, by the way, I have the crank is a 175 millimeter length crank. I use MPD pedals because there are times when I'll stop on a hill, and the hill will be 6, 7, 8%, and I need to be able to. I want it on both. I want to clip in on either or both sides to make it easier, because it's hard, going from a dead stop on an 8% grade. And so that's what I use there. It's a little heavier, but it's a worthwhile accommodation. Here as well, oftentimes because of sometimes the speed or just to be noticed, I have another strobe light, and that's a Planet bike blaze light, and I like it quite a bit. They're battery powered, or not battery powered, they use a USB. So this particular device here, onto which the light attaches, is something called the one-armed bandit, and you can purchase that from Bacchetta. The advantage of it is that if you attach a night light or this, and you're riding, it extends the light out sufficiently so that when you're pedaling, your feet are behind or next to the light, so that you don't get what is called foot flash, meaning as the pedal and your foot near the light is further out, so that you don't actually get illumination of your foot by the light, which can be distracting. If you were to actually put the light here, then you'd get foot flash, and it's distracting and annoying, especially when you have inclement weather. That's pretty much what I have here. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm easily found. Just search for Dan Fallon. Email is cycling@gmail.com. That's P as in Paul, SYCHLING. And I'm going to show you also, while I'm here, this is it's a spare wheel, but it identifies the fact that it's essentially the different kind of braking device. It's not a rim braking device. It's a different one. Good wheel, velocity wheel. I had to have the Velocity manufacturers build it up for me. So if you have any questions, again, it's Dan Fallon, cycling@gmail.com.